They didn't leave you by accident. They chose to lose you, and the moment you understand that simple truth, something inside you stops begging, stops waiting, and starts waking up to reality you were avoiding all along. Because what hurts most is not that they walked away, it's that they didn't hesitate when they did. You keep replaying their messages, their promises, the way they once looked at you like you were their entire world. But here's the part your mind keeps refusing to accept. That version of them was real, just not permanent. And now you're stuck in the echo of someone who has already moved on. What if I told you the pain you feel right now is not proof of love, but proof of attachment to something that no longer exists? And what if chasing them is the very reason you keep losing yourself? Stay with this story, because by the end of it, you won't look at love or loss the same way again. There is a moment in every person's life when silence becomes louder than words and absence starts speaking louder than memories. It usually happens at night, when everything is still, and your mind begins replaying the person who stopped choosing you. They didn't block you. They didn't always insult you. They didn't even give you a clear ending sometimes. They simply faded. And that fading is what makes it unbearable, because the human mind was never designed to understand. Disappearing love, it was designed to chase patterns, to seek closure, to believe that what once felt real must still exist somewhere. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. They are not confused. They are not stuck. They are not secretly waiting for the right moment to come back. They made a decision, and that decision was you, not being part of their next chapter. And this is where your suffering begins, not in their leaving, but in your refusal to accept that their leaving was intentional. Because the strange part is, the more you chase, the further you drift from yourself. You start negotiating your worth in silence. You start rewriting memories, lowering standards, convincing yourself that if you just say the right thing, text at the right time, show enough love, they will return to who they once were. But they are not who they once were, and maybe they never were. What you're holding on to is not a person. It's a version of them your mind created during emotional peak moments. And here's where everything begins to shift. What if the universe didn't remove them from your life to punish you, but to show you something you refused to see while they were still there? Because sometimes loss is not destruction, it's revelation. And if you keep watching, you'll understand why chasing someone who chose to lose you is not love. It's self-abandonment disguised as loyalty. But to understand that fully, you have to first walk through the psychology of why we chase, even when we know we shouldn't, and what it costs you every time you do. There is a strange addiction hidden inside heartbreak that most people never talk about. It is not love. It is not even attachment in its pure form. It is the illusion of unfinished emotional business. When someone leaves without closure, your brain treats it like a puzzle that must be solved. It refuses to accept emptiness as an answer. So it starts building stories. Maybe they will come back. Maybe they still care. Maybe this is just a phase. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think they are missing the person, but psychologically, they are addicted to the possibility of the person. Carl Jung once hinted at something powerful. The unconscious mind does not distinguish between reality and emotional projection when it is under distress. So what you miss is not them as they are, but them as you felt them to be. And here's the strange part. The more unclear the ending, the stronger the addiction becomes. Think about it. A clean breakup hurts, but it ends. A slow disappearance keeps you trapped in uncertainty, and uncertainty is the most powerful emotional drug the human brain can produce. This is why you check their profile. This is why you reread old messages. This is why you convince yourself that no contact will make them realize your value. But here's what most people never realize. Silence does not create clarity in someone who already chose distance. It only amplifies fantasy in the one who is left behind, and that fantasy becomes dangerous because you don't just miss them. You start competing with their absence. You start trying to outlove the version of you they decided to leave. You start thinking, if I just improve, if I just become better, they will see my worth again. But that thinking assumes they left because you were not enough. What if they left because they were done growing with you? This is the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Sometimes people don't leave because of failure. They leave because of completion. Their emotional journey with you reached a limit you didn't even notice. Nietzsche once said, "Some souls are not meant to stay in the same place once they evolve." And whether you agree or not, human behavior often proves this in painful ways. And now here is the psychological trap. Your brain confuses absence with importance. The more someone is gone, the more your mind inflates their value, and that inflation becomes obsession. But obsession is not love. It is resistance. Resistance to acceptance. Resistance to loss. Resistance to the truth that something has ended without your permission. And this is where the loop begins. You chase, they withdraw. You text, they reply less. You try harder, they detach further. And every step you take toward them is actually a step away from yourself. But the real question is, why does the human heart choose suffering over letting go? And the answer lies in something deeper than emotion. It lies in identity, because letting go of them feels like letting go of the version of you that existed with them, and that version is who you are still trying to save. But what if saving it is exactly what's destroying you? And in the next chapter, we go deeper into that identity collapse, the moment where love stops being love and becomes self-erasure. At first, chasing someone feels like devotion. It feels like loyalty. It feels like love in its most intense form. But slowly, something changes without you noticing. You begin adjusting your personality to match their silence. You become more available, more forgiving, more understanding. You start saying things like, "It's okay," when it isn't. You start accepting behavior you once called unacceptable. And this is where everything changes, because love is no longer expanding you. It is shrinking you. Marcus Aurelius wrote something simple but devastatingly accurate. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. But in emotional attachment, people violate this principle constantly, not because they are weak, but because they are afraid of loss. And fear is a powerful manipulator. You begin negotiating your own dignity in small moments. One ignored message becomes two. Two becomes a pattern. And suddenly silence becomes your normal. But here's the strange part. The more you tolerate, the less respect you receive, not because they are cruel, but because human behavior always aligns with boundaries. Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in relationships, your reaction teaches people how to treat you. So when you keep chasing, you are not just expressing love, you are training someone to leave you without consequences. And this is where self-erasure begins. You stop being a person with needs. You become a person with excuses. You start explaining away disrespect as timing issues, stress, confusion, busy life. But deep inside, you already know the truth. You are being emotionally abandoned in slow motion, and the hardest part is not their absence. It is your participation in it, because every time you chase, you are confirming to yourself that your peace is less important than their presence. But what happens when presence becomes pain? This is the point where Viktor Frankl's insight becomes painfully relevant. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But instead of changing inward, most people change outward. They lower standards, increase effort, reduce self-respect, and they call it love. But it is not love anymore. It is survival through emotional dependency. And here's the hidden truth. The person you are chasing is not the one holding power. The power is in your refusal to walk away, because the moment you stop chasing, the illusion collapses. The fantasy dies. The emotional imbalance reveals itself. And that is terrifying, because now you have to face the question you've been avoiding all along. Who are you without someone who doesn't choose you? And the answer to that question leads to either destruction or transformation. And in the next chapter, we enter that exact crossroads. There comes a breaking point, not dramatic, not cinematic, not loud. It is quiet. It happens when you realize your messages are no longer conversations. They are attempts to revive something that is already gone, and something inside you gets tired. Not angry, not emotional, just tired. And that exhaustion is sacred, because that is the moment detachment begins. Lao Tzu once said, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." But letting go is not an action. It is a collapse of illusion. You stop checking, not because you are strong, but because you are done being hurt by repetition. And strangely, this is where everything changes. At first, silence feels like withdrawal. Your mind screams for contact. Your body reacts like it lost oxygen. But then something unexpected happens. Clarity. You begin to see patterns you ignored before. You see how often you were anxious, how often you were waiting, how often you were prioritizing someone who did not prioritize you. And here's the psychological twist most people miss. Love should not feel like withdrawal symptoms. If it does, it was never balanced. Nietzsche warned about this when he said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." But chaos in relationships is not poetic. It is destructive when only one person carries it. And now you start seeing something else. Their absence was not sudden. It was gradual. It was visible. You just refused to accept it, because acceptance means losing hope. And hope is the last thing to die. But hope can also be the longest prison sentence. And this is where identity begins to rebuild. Not through reunion, but through removal. Because when you stop chasing, you stop abandoning yourself. And the person you begin to meet in that silence is someone you had forgotten. You. But transformation is not complete yet. Because even after letting go, something deeper remains. The meaning of it all. And that is where the final chapter begins. When someone chooses to lose you, life is not taking something away from you. It is revealing something about you. It is showing you where your boundaries were missing, where your self-worth was negotiable, where your love was unconditional but not directed toward yourself. And this is the most painful realization. You were not just loving them. You were abandoning yourself in order to keep them. But here's what most people never realize. Self-respect is not built in moments of being chosen. It is built in moments of being rejected and still choosing yourself. Stoicism teaches that pain is not the enemy. Attachment to what causes pain is, and once you see that clearly, the entire story shifts. You stop asking, "Why didn't they stay?" and start asking, "Why did I beg someone who was already leaving?" That question is not self-blame, it is awakening, because awareness without denial is the beginning of freedom, and slowly something powerful happens. You stop romanticizing inconsistency, you stop confusing anxiety with love, you stop calling emotional uncertainty passion, and in that space peace begins to grow. Not the peace of getting them back, the peace of not needing them back. And this is where emotional maturity is born. You realize something profound. What left you was not love. It was an experience, and experiences are meant to be learned from, not chased. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that everything we lose is returned to nature. But what we gain in return is understanding, if we are willing to see it. And now you see it. You see that chasing someone who chose to lose you was never about them. It was about the part of you that believed love had to be earned through suffering. But love that requires self-abandonment is not love. It is conditioning. And now the cycle breaks, because you are no longer the person who runs behind absence. You are the person who recognizes when absence is a message. And the message was simple all along. Stop going where you are not chosen. There is a quiet power in letting someone become a memory instead of a mission, because memories are peaceful, missions are exhausting, and for so long you turned a person into a mission, something to fix, something to win back, something to decode. But people are not puzzles meant for endless solving. They are experiences meant to pass through your life and shape you, not define you. And when someone chooses to lose you, it is not the end of your story. It is the end of a chapter where you forgot yourself. The truth is simple, but it takes a broken heart to understand it fully. Not everyone who leaves is taking something from you. Some are revealing what you kept giving away: your time, your energy, your dignity, your peace, and in their absence, you finally notice the cost. But here's the final revelation most people never reach. The moment you stop chasing someone who chose to lose you, you don't lose them. You lose the version of you who believed they were necessary for your worth. And that loss is not loss at all. It is return to silence without anxiety, return to self without negotiation, return to a life where love is not a battlefield, but a balance. And maybe one day, when you think back to the person you chased, you will not feel anger. You will not feel sadness. You will feel distance. And that distance will mean something powerful. You survived the version of you that didn't know your worth yet. And that is the real ending of every story like this. Not the person who left, but the person who finally stopped running. Because in the end, the deepest truth is not that they chose to lose you. It is that you finally chose not to lose yourself anymore.